I'm Frances Roberts Reilly. I have a background in a culture called Welsh Kale, which is based in Wales, and it is different from the UK one, which is Roma Shell, and it's different from Scotland, which is Norcan, and it's different from the Irish Travellers. We are our own culture. Although there's been so much intermarriage that often people confuse the two. But I've been most concerned about working uh, on my story because it's been silenced and been erased by non-Rom and also by the secrecy of my own family. So the question of identity and belonging has been handed down the generations as trauma and collective memory, with many still figuring out and finding the answer. There's a primal question, who am I? The appropriation by non-Rom, who have told our story for us, silenced my family members, who kept it secret and forbid the speaking of our language, which I've subsequently learned as an adult. An identity that I've discovered requires actually challenging this erasure and silencing of our story. And not to get too academic, but it adds up to a significant strand of intersections, which are the joining of racial bias, class conflict, ethnic discrimination, cultural appropriation, and social exclusion, which is actually unique among many ethnic groups. So I always found that this multi-level intersection raises troubling questions about how the Romany Gypsy exists both within and outside our society. The other strand in my work is because I've worked as a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, making documentaries on human rights. And have been interviewing victims of torture in the Philippines, South Korea, Argentina, Chile, and Guatemala. And also, I work with women's rights on equal pay and on our human rights. And the third part of it, the other strand, is I've been very much exposed to the folk tales that have been handed down a generation of nomads, which is where we come from. And often it takes place these stories or folk tales take place in the dark woods, and that serves as an undifferentiated ground of being, a place where our psyche has its first life experience. It's a place of danger and ordeals, a place of secrets, a place of inversions, or it can be a sanctuary to hide and find safety within, perhaps even as an Achavatan, a stopping place. So the evocation and reminder of why Romany Gypsy must learn to navigate a world of inversions that's so often hostile to us. That's what we have to do. And these folklores nurture and sustain our identity and collective memory. So those three strands work their way through my poetry. What else can I say? Well, I came into my poetic voice when I was 60. I'm 80 now. I don't look it, I know, but I'm 80. And so I'm at a stage in my life where I'm more concerned with ideas of paradox. We endure suffering, and yet there's also joy. We live in this binary. At a certain age, the compassion and the forgiveness comes into play. So when I wrote my memoir, I brought that all in, and it's not so much apparent in the poetry collection, but it is in my memoir. And that's the kind of peace that I've found with my story at this stage in my life. So, so I was most concerned in telling our story because so many have written about it. And actually, we have to watch out for AI now. I asked GPT to write a gypsy story, and it was full of wanderers and mystics and fortune tellers. And I thought, why, so I asked, why can't you write an authentic gypsy poem for us? And they said it's because there's not enough out there of what we have written ourselves. And what they're doing is they're scouring the internet for all the non-Rom pieces that have been written about us and then presenting that as authentic. So we really I know that Lynn and I are real buddies in this. We're trying to build a canon of Roma writers so that we don't keep running in the future into these predicaments with AI trying to get away with romanticizing and vilifying us, which is the same old story. So
I
I know
tell
it,
people
yeah,
the books are out there. Books by Romani authors are out there,
they're out there.
but we
But
need to get them on library shelves, and that's one of the reasons we do the group.
yeah, I mean, for God's sake, do that. Get them on the library shelves, buy them, read them, and write about them, you know. That's why I'm very keen to write blurbs for people and have people write blurbs for me, because at least it's out there in the internet. And so when the AI starts scouring and aggregating all the stories, they will come across eventually some of the authentic voices.
Well,
They
I
had
would
no, sorry.
AI does not write. I would rather the chat GPT does not write any stories.
No, no.
But
So we're facing it again. I also had an experience just the other day where somebody who had been accosted on the street in a very small town close to where I live here and had likened it to being in Budapest and Vienna and having Roma accost him. And I said, come on, please don't vilify us because we don't go by that stereotype. There's nothing genetic about anybody being a criminal, especially Roma. So that happened 2 or 3 days ago, and it's down the road from where I live. So we know it's happening. Um, Also, Harvard did a study on Canadian Roma. We're 100,000. It's 100,000 of us. The first came in the late 1870s when slavery was abolished in Romania. We had a whole set of families come and settle in High River, Alberta, where they were offering free land for anyone who would settle it. And they were the first Roma to come out of slavery in Romania. I haven't met them, but Ron Lee, who is out, you probably know about Ron Lee, right?
read his autobiographical novel, The Living Fire.
Yeah, yeah. So Ron Lee, who's been very much an educator here, and it's international the work that he did. Actually met some of them, so we do have a record of them. We know they're here, and they've we've got an account of their arrival. Otherwise, we've just had, as in any immigration, waves. Um, so Lynn probably could talk to it better. We had Romanishal come from England. We had Narken coming from Scotland. We had a wave coming from Hungary in 1956. We had Russians in Ruska in the 1990s. And now we are getting more from Romania and from Bulgaria. They're coming. And so we're growing. And we have a Romany Alliance here in Canada, and they make everyone welcome. So we're growing, and it's a living, breathing community of Roma here in Canada. About 100,000, you know. So,
Do you want to talk about
oh,
the book?
Parramisha, yeah, yeah.
I have lots of questions, but I'm going to let you tell us what you like. I'm sure I have a couple
Well,
of questions.
so I wrote it in the pandemic, so it's nice and quiet, and I hadn't published much in of our particular genre at all, and I so let's go back. So Ron wrote his autobiography in 1984. Yeah,
Ronald Lee.
Ron Lee. Lynn has written hers in the last 2 years, and mine's coming next year. So that's How many books? 4 books?
Wait,
Yeah.
Lynn, have you written an autobiography?
No, she's written The
No.
Origins of Desire
Yes, we did that one last
and
year,
Nightshade.
and
Yeah.
we're doing that one in May.
Yeah, Nightshade
Uh,
is not an autobiography, but
yeah.
it is based on stories from my father, my sister, and brother about the family when they came from England, where they picked tobacco and traveled in southwestern Ontario with their puppets. So what I've done is I've given them a new voice through the story Nightshade. So it's not autobiographical, but it's drawing on
Yeah.
family stories.
So since 1984, that's 4 books published by Roma in Canada. Yeah.
Three people, three
Three
people
three
of
people have
Romany
written the book.
descent.
Oh yeah.
You need more.
Yeah, I'm writing another, and we've got in place or plans for an anthology of North American, Canadian American Roma writers that's actually going through right now. Oksana's going to be an editor, and Cynthia
Thought
Levinsky. Yeah, yeah, Mariferotti. So we've got 2 great editors, and we've got a publisher who's serious about it. So where that's the next piece that's coming out, probably in a couple of years, I would think. So
we
my
hope.
book, so my book didn't get published in Canada. It got published in Wales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was going to
couldn't
ask
find it.
about talk a bit
Yeah,
about your publication journey.
yeah. Well,
How did it come about?
yeah, I know. Let me think. It was it was let's call it archaeology because it meant that I had to excavate to find the story because it was kept secret in my family. And we couldn't speak the language. And my dad was the one who ran from it, and my dad was the Welsh Roma, Welsh Rom. And he took our music somewhere, which was lovely. But I have always been a storyteller. When I was doing the documentaries on human rights, and I was talking to these victims of torture in, South America and in Philippines, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories, but I actually didn't have consciously any idea that I was carrying a Roma story in me. But unconsciously, of course, I did, because I was attracted to meeting these people and telling their stories. And they, in turn, went out. They were put into Christian education because it was the United Church of Canada that commissioned me to do these stories. So they went out to all congregations. Another thing I did was work on the Canadian Constitution, which had, in a backroom deal, at a stroke of a pen, taken women's rights out of our Constitution. So we worked with all the players in that, and it was at a grassroots level, constitutional lawyers, human rights lawyers, teachers. We gave scripts to wives of influence decision makers so they could have a conversation over the breakfast table. We did all things like that. And that went into every high school in Canada. And
And when was that?
it was called New
But what,
The Constitution, New Rights for Women, question mark. It's a whole
but when was
story. Hmm?
what years was this?
This is in the 80s because we had the Constitution in 82. So we must have done it around 83, 84. So it's, what, 40 years ago. And that went into every high school to encourage girls to understand that their rights can be taken away at a stroke of a pen. And goodness knows we're seeing that now, aren't we? They're, they're all yeah, anyway. So I realized that I am a storyteller, and I didn't go the route of a lot of my colleagues, which was to go to Los Angeles or Hollywood or to go into special TV channels. I kind of stuck with something that gave me meaning, and I just wanted to be that person to tell the story. So when it came to my own story, I had to excavate it because it was kept secret in my family, except for my grandmother and my great aunt, who both told me. And my grandmother was the one who taught me fortune telling. And I feel strongly about that. That's one of our cultural values. And I've written a poem about it. Um, and I've written a lot. I've written a whole chapter in my memoir about it. Um, so, and then there was the music. So my dad was an opera singer. He was a tenor. He sang at Sadler's Wells in London. He used to take me to um, rehearsals of all the operas he was in. And by the time I was 15, I was also on stage singing in the chorus of Il Trovatore and what's the other one? South Pacific, which I loved. Um, and so the music was transmitted through the family from Abram Wood, who we know was alive in 1699. He's our Shero Rom, our head Rom, and so the music, but the story of what happened to us didn't. And that's what I had to excavate. And the first place I found was all this Gypsy Law Society material on the internet when I Googled. You can still find it. People confront me with it a lot. They say, oh, John Sampson said this, and, Charles Leyland said that, and Francis Groom said that. And I went into a lot of reflection and digging into is that who we really are, and then they came around me, and I was lucky with that, fortunate. I had helpers, and from that I was able to find our story within the one that had been mainly a fantasy. It was mainly a fantasy about us, and I went from there and started writing. I'm going to turn that off. Um, so some of the things that inspire me when I'm writing is the idea of place. If I'm in a place like I'm in the mountains of Wales, I've written several poems about that. There's the idea of music, so I've written about that. Um, there's, for me, the idea of ancestors who are particularly beautifully. I can actually define them, and I can give them a personality and a set of values. And I've done that with my Seifarella poem and with the Kocho box story. I also consider myself I'm on the drum a lot. I've lived in 3 countries and worked in 5, so I've been around, and that tends to find its way into my work. And I mentioned earlier the drive through West Virginia. I've also written about looking here, some parts of Wales. What else have I got here? Oh, in Canada, seeing the Northern Lights up near the French River. Um, Down in Saint Augustine. No, I'm saying that right. Saint Augustine. That's it. It's not the saint; it's the place. I was at one of these reenactments of the Seminole Indigenous people, and they had a planetarium there, and they showed the voyage of Ponce de Leon when he landed at St. Augustine, and that he followed the North Star in his navigation. That's all he had to go on, and then he landed on the shore. So so sometimes a poem will just visit, and a poem about that just visited, and I sat down and wrote it. So it's that whole metaphor of the night sea journey, of moving into the darkness and the unknown, floating on a sea of vulnerability and loss, leaving what you know behind to go something you don't know. And I had that, for me, is the flavor of the diaspora we had from India through to right through to England and Wales. That we went not knowing where we were going, and when we arrived, we had to adapt. So the language part of it is in my Vitsa, which is my tribe. 47% of it is Sanskrit. The rest of it is what's called loan words. So we picked up words as we went through different countries, as we applied ourselves, to earn money, get employment, that kind of thing. And I had a really nice example of that. In my writing group, I met this gentleman from Afghanistan, and and I'd read, so he said, "Shukka, I know the word shukka." I said, "Yeah." I said, "What about counting? Yek, Dui, Trin, Pash." Oh, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same for us in Afghanistan. So we know that there's been a transmission of language from hundreds of years ago from Afghanistan as they moved through Persia, Afghanistan, and into Wales. So I love that, and I'm really learning the language again. And when I do, I pick up words that my grandmother used to say. I think, oh, I know that word, louver. It means money. Because she used to.
How are you learning?
I could give you a reference. There's a dictionary by a gentleman called Robert Dawson, and his company is robertdawson.co.uk. And I've got it here.
So is that Welsh Kale that you're learning specifically?
There it is.
Yes, it is. Welsh Romany Dictionary. Uh-huh.
So you get onto his website, and it's lots of words, and you can buy it online. And so I've learned it, and he helps me a lot. So when I get stuck on something, I'm writing a book, another one about birds right now, and how nomads use birds as guides and messengers, and use their songs for the music. So he's been really, really helpful to me, and he's a lovely man. He's a honey of a man. He's been an educator all his life. He's in his 80s now, and he's still working, and he's still publishing, and he's still helping us. And he went around the families in Wales and wrote all the words down. So
Is the sentence structure still like Sanskrit, or have they taken the English sentence structure and then just kept the Kale vocabulary?
Yeah. So when John Sampson wrote the dictionary, the dictionary was written from the language that my great-great-grandfather Edward Wood spoke to him in a pub in Bala, and my other ancestor Matthew Wood also taught him. So, but what he's written is, and I don't want this to sound nasty, but academics love it. But it's not our everyday language, it just isn't. And he even was so bold as to criticize us for saying words the wrong way. So when I've got it behind me, I have his dictionary. I do look it up. I do cross-reference, and I cross-reference with Sanskrit and Hindu dictionaries online because I love the etymology of words. So when he wrote the dictionary, it was 30 odd years after he met my great-great-grandfather in that pub, the Place Goch, in Bala. And we got nothing out of it. They had a whole industry of publishing, a journal, the Gypsy Law Society. They took our words, they took our stories, they published them, they built a really big reputation academically. They had all kinds of leading intellectuals join the Gypsy Law Society. And we never saw a cent of it. We never saw anything, So it's a bit of it's a sore point. And Robert Dawson says, they just had the nerve to say, well, they're not saying it right, it should be this way. So what happens was they anglicized the sentence structure just to get back to the syntax, whereas we would just maybe use one word. We might just say, let me think of one. We might just say, Parramisha, which means our story. But that's like a whole sentence, We would just interject with one word, and we knew what that meant, So I'm really, really, really aware that I'm leaving something behind for whoever comes next. I'm not going to complete the project while I'm here. So I'm really working on leaving a legacy behind so that someone else can come behind me and do some more of the work, which, I think is quite likely it's quite on the cards. So I work a lot with people in the UK and Wales, We've been trying to get an Abram Wood 1 2 day festival going. We haven't quite got that together, but these are the kinds of things we're thinking about. It's already taught, the story of us is already taught in Welsh schools to, I'm going to say primary. What's
Wood
the name?
family is
It's
very well known in
grade
there.
school, to grade school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they teach our story to the children, and the language is part of that. So I came at it um, almost like looking at a jigsaw puzzle. I had this bit. How does it all fit together? Because I only had bits of the story, and I've had to kind of what I've done is, in writing it, I've written myself into wholeness. I'm a whole person now. When I started in my 60s, I wasn't. I just had this, and this, and some of those poems I put the early ones in, but I can look at them now and think, yeah, that was your first. There's your first poem, Frances. And I did have some success in getting some of them published, but I'm not. I don't know how Lynn feels about this. She should come in because she's in Canada too. We don't have a robust um, publishing industry in Canada because we have such a small population. We're only 42 million or something. So we don't have a large, consumer base. What do you think, Lynn?
Yeah, the most accessible publishers in Canada would be the independent publishers,
Yeah,
the smaller publishers. In fact, I think Francis, your book is coming out with Guernica,
yeah,
which is an independent publisher, and My Nightshade is with Assembly Press, also an independent publisher. So they're small publishers, but they actually can reach a lot of people, particularly with their distribution systems and with Zoom events, and so on. But they're the big five, of course, which we find in the States and in Canada. And those are agent and publishers. You need to have an agent. And even getting published in an independent publisher, I think it's only about, is it less than 2% of
yeah,
people actually get their
yeah,
books published? And
yeah,
yeah, so it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle. I think Francis and I are both very fortunate to
yeah,
be able to have our work out there, particularly since we're both the same age, and who's going to come after us
yeah,
to carry on?
yeah,
I found it very inspiring because I think you're both a little bit older than me. And I just find it very inspiring that, getting like Lynn, your first publishing, first books published in later life. I just love that. So thank you for
yeah.
doing that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. The other thing I would say is what I've heard is that the big five, as we talk about, they wait and see what the independent publishers are doing, and if any one of us takes off, they will come and approach. Yeah, I mean, I was so envious of Maddie on the last one when Penguin just came up to her and said, "Oh, we'd love to, we'd love to publish you." I think,
And
oh,
I think Paulina Stevens and Jasmina Montilla, they were approached by Red Wheel Wiser Books.
why is that? Yeah, yeah,
Their social media presence. That's how the young people often get picked up from social media
Mhm.
these
yeah,
days.
yeah. So, well, we do what we can with what we have, and I mean, I have no problem getting published in the UK, but when I've been in Canada 49 years, and I just want to feel I bloody belong here. Listen to me. Yeah, I have
So
we're writing on the margins, aren't we, Lynn? We write on the margins, and we get published by, actually their mandate is we publish marginal writers. So you've got the people who get published are white male settlers.
True.
They can write about their family farms and all of this stuff, and they get published no problem. But we on the margins stay on the margins. Yeah.
how long did it take you to get Parramisha published? Did you send it out to a lot
I
of?
sent it out to a lot of Canadian publishers. I got long listed with one. I got I don't think we're very we don't have good manners about rejection. I mean, I'm okay.
Who does?
But the publishers, I'm talking on that end of things. And so finally I thought, no, I'm going to send it to Cinnamon Press. They were based in Blaenau Festiniog in Wales, which is where my family used to take their Vardos and travel around. And I sent it in and she got it, she gave it to me straight away. And then with the Guernica, he said, well, I'll let you know in 6 months. Well, he wrote back to me in 2 weeks with the contract. So I was really heartened by that. Um,
Can I
yeah.
just interject here? They
Yeah,
rejected Nightshade.
they did, didn't they?
They
Yeah.
did, yes. And then Michael said, "Well, why don't you submit it to the there was a competition."
Yeah.
Um, so I submitted it to the competition, and I got shortlisted. And someone else got their book published. But yeah, so it's you never know where you're
Yes.
going to end
No.
up and how.
No,
I
that's
think
right.
that's
Yeah,
very exciting. After 2 weeks, Francis, that's a record.
I couldn't believe it. I was just gobsmacked.
can you explain shortlisted and longlisted? Because I don't think we have those terms in American
Oh, you
publishing.
don't? Oh, okay. I
Um,
I think Lynn knows more about. I think what I got in a long list was I was on a list of people who were potentially going to get published, but then they cut it down and cut it down to the
yeah,
short list and
we
then to
don't,
one.
that's, that's interesting. Like if you're up against somebody else you don't know, usually you get nothing. Or you
Yeah.
get you send part, you get requests for full manuscripts.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and then they say no. So that's, that's how so you're not told really anything that's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. So that
Francis,
yeah,
are you ready to read something
I'm ready
yet?
to read something. Yeah.
You have one chosen.
Do you have one chosen? Do you want to hear?
One chosen, but I should maybe, does anybody else have a particular poem they would want Francis to read? 'Cause I know she's my favorite. Um, well, they're looking, I'll say that my favorite is Skeleton Woman.
Oh, you like Skeleton Women.
Love
Lovely.
Skeleton. And
That's
this is very much to me, a crone book.
yes, it
It's
is.
crone in the best possible sense, as it should
Yeah,
be.
yeah. It was
It's not a book,
75 when it got published.
yeah, this is not something a 40-year-old or a 35-year-old would have and could have written. So I love
No.
that.
Skeleton Woman is based on that the folklore tale of the fisherman who fished up the body.
Mhm.
And he ran because she was a skeleton and he wanted a beautiful young bride. So I thought I'll just write it from the point of view of her. And yeah, and I wrote it in the 80s. But I wrote it when
Oh,
my marriage was breaking up, actually,
uh-huh.
because I had that sense of rejection, that I was seen as something I'm not, and that's caused the
Going
end
back.
of the marriage. Yeah. So I wrote the poem. It was almost like I've got to write this because there's got to be something beautiful we can take out of that story. So you want me to read that one? I'm going to go look for it.
It's a pretty long one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta find it. Oh, it's She Speaks. Yeah.
Page
Um,
36.
36, thank you. There you go. 33. Skeleton woman, cremator of bones. Drink. With automatic hand, your oar strokes amorously, your boat gliding on the river. Have you sailed these waters where Damon's breath rips your ardent sails against all willpower? In my mirrored crone's milky eye, these white coral bones beneath, slowly caressed by the whispering current, drawing you into my arms. Now the water refracts, lustrous shards of moonlight, a chiaroscuro transmuting and inverting, inky blue-black-white water ripples towards the sea. I, the incubator of bones, cracking open thy boon, amethyst, light violet from within, gems of the first water. I sing Abraxas' charms, and girdled with heliotropes, fire opals, and red coral, offer my wise marrow. I bid you to my bony bed. After the bonfire, under the fire-bit embers, my fingers glow into words, writ large upon your soul, my name, skeleton woman, cremator of bones. By the waters you sit down and weep. At your back you hear the chunk of my bones. You see our bodies naked on soggy colloidal soil, our bones scattered, cast in runes across the sky. In my bones I hear nothing. The water's skin shivers with sorrow, and beneath the requiem laments, floats and rocks the waters. It is I, bone gatherer, bone woman, dancing on the elemental edge of longing. I'd like to read another if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so I have a granddaughter in Germany who's mixed race, and we went there for the Christmas markets in November, December, and I took her hand and I was walking with her along the Dorothea Strasse, and we passed the Silber Hotel, and I went back to my room and I looked it up, and the Silber Hotel is a Nazi museum, but it was the Gestapo headquarters of the national whatever. And I thought it could have easily been her because she's mixed race. You know, my stepson's Afro-Canadian, so that's really clear. And so I thought I'll write her a letter telling her our story, and I'll sign it with all the great grandmothers. So would you mind if I read that? Yeah.
Please do. Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
Oh, was it? Mm.
Yeah, well, that was one I could understand. Some of them were,
Out there.
you know, for someone, I'm not someone who reads a lot of poetry. So, that one I was able to get.
Oh, good. All right. Well, it is a letter. Sorry. Okay, it's so I write in Romany, Shukar Romany Chai Lil. So here's the semantics. Letter to our lovely girl. Shukar means lovely, Romany Chai means girl, and Lil is letter. So that's the semantics of writing Romany. Dear Isabel, we didn't know it was you, or we would have struggled more fiercely against the history that overtook all our lives. For all the insanity, its sudden ruthless capture, on the edge of raw terror, we too surrendered. Such was our tugness, that means sadness. Eleanor Wood, Mary Ann Wood, Winnie Wood, Gwen Davies, Frances Roberts Reilly, your Puri Dai, your grandmothers. We expected to know you, for we too are Gypsy Roma. We should have sensed the moment, the constant unnerving rearrangement of reality, the whispers, the staring, the distancing. We were sharpened by strange fears. We were put out. But there you were, as if existing in some far-off past. Through all this dislocated and suspended time, I joined you again. As the chestnuts were singeing on coal fires in the Marienplatz, I took your hand. We joined the Christmas crowds walking past Hotel Silber, that was the formal place of horror, the Gestapo HQ. My beautiful, warm, vulnerable great-great-grandchild, branded as Zigeuner, which is German for gypsy. On the Marienplatz, my spirit is your deep knowing. My Roma rat, which means blood, would have condemned you, dear Isabel, to arrest, removal, transportation, and death. 74 years ago, my age now, you would have been marched down the same street, past taunts and jeers of racist neighbours. I would have dropped into the night of ancient momentous awe and keened a sorry song as the frigid winter came upon you. We were never allowed to make a fuss. That's what cultural oppression did to us. It gave us resilience to uphold our proud tradition. We gypsies sang, played our harps for our bread and butter. In summer we harvested hops, cooked bacon rollover, picked herbs, and heard our puri die, our old ones, as uncles played gypsy fiddle, another clogged, danced on a table. We'd listen enraptured as Black Ellen's stories shook the earth. Harps serenaded as skaters twirled on the ice of the River Severn, where our uncles fished for trout for breakfast. Taking to the Welsh mountain roads, we had horses, and vardos and carts. Some saw us as nomads, thieves and vagabonds. We were dusky and swarthy, criminals or dirty gypsies, they said, or sultry beauties who beckoned and enticed and seduced. That's the insult that we, Putavamari Folki Folkendi, our home was wherever the patron's signs directed us to stop, our Achitan stopping place. That squalid hut 13 was your last home at Auschwitz. Their racism put us all there. It was where you were imprisoned, rose up and were murdered. We'd have sacrificed our very blood and bone if we'd known it was you. Even now, the tourists visiting Auschwitz aren't told about our Roma Holocaust story. Hut 13 isn't on the tourist maps. We've been silenced and erased. Dick and Shun, watch and listen. Dear Romany Chai, the Kali the goddess, gives us Roma the gift of seeing all things, even those cruel eyes of the Parramisha, the devouring, cursing and hating that keeps us moving on, an ancient diaspora. Alas, even now, in this century, in this year, on this day, it continues. Their unthinkable sadism is now erased from history, and I can't tell you my pain. This letter is our story. It would not have saved you. Jassa Seth Duval, go with God. Love and luck. Your grandmothers, Eleanor Wood, Mary Ann Wood, Winnie Wood, Grant Davies, Frances Roberts Reilly.